Hello everyone, Volp here. In today's video, we're going to talk about things I dislike about Magic or things which I would have designed differently if I was actually responsible for designing the game. And it's like, in general, just things which I think could have been done differently or maybe even like completely removed. So to start things off, I'm going to talk about like the primary issue that I kind of want to say people can collectively agree on, that it's like an issue with the game as a whole. And you probably already see it coming. It's, of course, the resource system of Magic / the land system or mana system. It's something that I really never liked about Magic, and it's like the major thing about Magic that really prevents me from fully appreciating the game. And because I really do like the game, I love the game. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship I have with Magic. But it's this one primary thing, which is the land system, that is really, again, preventing me from like fully appreciating the game. Which I would have designed differently back then. So again, I do consider that the game came out like, I think almost 27 years ago as a physical paper game. So they only had so many options to go with in how to design a resource system, and they did not have the luxury of like, the games nowadays, like virtual card games like Hearthstone, Eternal, and whatnot, they have the luxury of just coming with a resource system that is like automatically, handled and managed. And but the thing is, with Magic dealing with a color, like 5-color pie system, they of course couldn't just go with like a singular resource system like Hearthstone uses it, right? So they had to come up with something different. I mean, like they designed something different back then. I mean, this was like way before Hearthstone was a thing, obviously. And I do understand that they had to come up with something that, would work in a physical environment, and not like a virtual environment. So for what they did, for what they delivered, I kind of want to say they did a great job, right? But I still dislike it for simply adding more randomness onto an already randomness-based system, because that's what the land system ultimately does. It's just adding more randomness on top of a layer of randomness, right? Because like every trading card game, as we know, is already dealing with a forced element of randomness, which is, a draw mechanic. Most trading card games, like 95% of trading card games out there, they're working with a deck system, right? So you have this like stack of cards or pile of cards, which are like randomly assigned, and you're like drawing cards randomly from that stack, right? So that alone is already a heavily huge forced randomness factor that you have in a game that you can't avoid, you can't prevent, right? You have to deal with that. Which is, I guess, which most people can work with, right? Like you have like additional draw mechanics in form of like drawing additional cards and stuff like through card effects to like mitigate this kind of randomness out. So that is fine. But then I'm like thinking, why would you, like heavily enforce this randomness even more by adding a land system in this kind of shape and form, like why would you have like land cards in your deck that is basically just adding more on top of the randomness, right? So, which is weird. That's like weird to me because like back then they were already like differentiating between two type of like cards in the game, right? You had spell cards and you have land cards. So I'm like thinking, why didn't they just decide to go with like two separate pile of stack of cards, right? Like they could have the library, which is like the deck, which consists of only the spells, and then they could have like the mana pool, if you will, which only consists of land cards. So basically that every turn, you draw a card from your library and you draw a card from your mana pool, and you place the mana pool card automatically, like immediately onto the board, right? So you basically have a steady mana curve, and it's guaranteed that you're having this steady mana curve, right? And it would like at least like you, of course, you would still have the randomness of not knowing what land card you're going to pull if you're playing with like a multiple colored deck, right? But at least it's ensured that you will get mana every turn, right? So that you have this like steady ensured mana curve. So that could have been like fixed, right? I know this is like not possible to like implement in the game now. They would have to like heavily revamp the whole thing, right? So this is like not possible anymore. I'm just like talking about like what if they decided to go with this kind of like system right from the beginning, How could Magic be nowadays, right? If they would have prevented in going with this stupid land system they have now. I really don't like it. And now another thing I don't like about Magic, and I also like specifically talking about Magic Arena. Another thing that I don't like is that the game is not clearly differentiating between best of 1 and best of 3. And what I mean is there is this system which is called sideboard, right? Like sideboarding is like a really crucial thing of Magic. I don't mind the sideboarding. I just wish that sideboarding was something that would be like kept and reserved for best of 3 or a best of 3 environment. Like if you want to play in tournament rules, you should have a sideboard. That's totally fine. But if I want to play my best of 1 games, the whole element of sideboard should be like entirely disabled or removed even, right? Because it's so weird to me. Like I'm playing best of 1 mostly because of like time restrictions. And I know people will like tell me, nah, the true beauty of Magic is like playing in a best of 3 environment and with tournament rules. Like, yeah, sure. But, sometimes I just want to play best of 1 and I should have the right to play best of 1. I mean, the game is simply providing me with the option to play the game in best of 1, right? But what annoys me about playing best of 1 games is that some decks, some players still have the option to play with a sideboard, and I'm specifically talking about cards like Fae of Wishes, for example. What I don't like about this is that I am playing just plainly with my 60-card deck in best of 1, and now my opponent is also playing with a 60-card deck, but now he's also using a sideboard because he has Fae of Wishes, so he's playing, like you have to think about this, he's not playing with a 75-card deck, which would just add more randomness to the whole thing. No, he's playing with a 60-card deck, but now on top of that, he has a pool of 15 additional cards that he can pick from with Fae of Wishes, so he can like choose a spell at any given time, and it's not like he's searching the card in his library. No, like he literally has a pile of cards, of 15 additional cards like next to him that he can pick from, and I find that to be actually even broken in a best of 1 environment, because you should really have to keep this clean. Like a best of 1 should really be like either everyone can use that, everyone can use that sideboard, but sometimes you build your deck in a way that you don't have a use for a sideboard in best of 1, right? And again, it's best of 1. And if I don't want to play with a sideboard, I don't want to, right? And it just annoys me, but that I have to face players that can still make use of that. So what I think they should have done is, for example, if you create a deck and you're creating it for a best of 1 environment, the whole sideboard element should just be disabled, so that you can't even drag cards into your sideboard while creating a deck, right? So this way, you can still, of course, play Fae of Wishes if you want, but it wouldn't make much sense, right? Since you don't have a sideboard anymore. Because to me, a sideboard should be functioning as like a zone, if you will, that is existing outside of a current match, and that you can only use to like swap cards in and out in between matches. You should not have the ability at all to interact with your sideboard during a current match, right? I think this is like another major design choice, which is like almost stupid even. Like just a line on certain cards that are like saying, pick a card from outside the game. That line itself sounds so stupid. That's literally like me having a game of Magic with a friend, and I'm just like suddenly standing up and walking up to my box of old Yu-Gi-Oh cards and pulling my blue-eyed white dragon and just throwing it into the current Magic match we're having, That's literally the same thing. That's a card I own from outside the game, and now I'm just like throwing that. So it's so dumb. Like they should really never make this a thing in Magic that you can interact with your sideboard during a match. I think that's like heavily stupid. So that's like the second thing I really dislike about Magic. And now another thing, and probably the last thing that really bugs me about Magic is its mulligan system. The way it's designed, or what I don't like about this, is that you can heavily put yourself in a massive disadvantage before the match even starts. And I think that should never be a thing. Like they should really design in a way that you just mulligan once, and then, or like other trading card games do that way, that you can like discard cards that you don't want and then just pull the same amount of cards. I mean, I know this would probably heavily favor decks like red deck win decks, like mono red aggro kind of stuff. But I'm pretty sure they can still design something or come up with something that is not like the current mulligan system way it works. Again, it can technically put you heavily in a disadvantage. Like I kind of want to say I'm working with a deck that has an optimal amount of land cards, right? Like I really don't need to change anything, and in most cases it's fine. In most cases I don't need to mulligan, but sometimes luck is just like hitting you right in the face, and you have to like mulligan 3 times in a row and still don't have the sufficient amount of land cards. And now it's like, should I go another time? But honestly, everything below 5 cards is literally just fucking yourself before the match even starts, right? And so yeah, it's like choosing between like going even further or just going with the starting hand you then have, but it's like a completely crap. And I really don't like this mulligan system, so that should be changed too. And I wish they would come up with something different. But yeah, this is basically the video, or the things that I wanted to talk about, the design choices of Magic that I don't agree with, and where I almost want to say the game would be better off if it wasn't or weren't for these like stupid design choices. But again, all in all, I do love Magic, but I just felt like doing this kind of video because those were like elements of the game that I just don't really, they really, again, prevent me from like fully appreciating the game, and I really want to fully appreciate the game. But I'm pretty sure most of you guys out there, you had these moments too. Even like, I'm pretty sure you guys are like really good when it comes to like deck building and stuff, and you know exactly how you craft your deck. But even with that deck where you think like this is like perfectly crafted, you will still get into these situations where you're still getting mana flooded or mana screwed, and which will ultimately cost your game, or the mulligan just completely screwing you over, and again, it's like things. Oh yeah, wait, there's actually another thing I don't like about Magic. I completely forgot about that. And that is that I don't like that Magic is not working with like limitations, or the game should like work with more limitations. What I mean is that Magic is, during like the gameplay is actually providing you with too much freedom. And what I mean is there's basically no limitations to how many creatures you can have on the board / tokens you can have on the board. Pretty much every card type, I think, is like limitless in Magic. And you can have an endless supply of mana, technically. I mean, you will be able to use the mana you have in your deck, right? And what annoys me about this is that eventually the game can turn into a complete huge clusterfuck fest. So it's basically just your clusterfuck or clusterfuckery versus the clusterfuckery of your opponent. And it's not so much about strategy anymore. Like it's not really like trying to outplay or outsmart your opponent. It's just your field being filled with like 50,000 tokens and whatnot. And still being able to play as many cards as you want because you have like 25 mana on the board, and I don't like this. I wish Magic would have also more restrictions like other trading card games do, because restrictions make certain plays more like you have to play in a more cautious manner. You have to play more considerate. You have to, really think through your strategies before playing something. But the way Magic works, like in the late game, it can happen, not for all games, but in some games that I had, it can happen that eventually you get into a state where you're literally in God mode. You can just like do whatever you want, play whatever you want. Like your opponent is not able to, like you're getting snowballed so hard that your opponent is just not able to overcome that anymore, And I don't like this kind of philosophy in a way about Magic. Like I do wish it was more like other trading card games where it's like a constant back and forth till the very end, And it's like where you have to play till the last bit of like life resource, right? But in Magic, it can happen so many times that you're not even close to death, like life point wise, but you still have to concede because of the clusterfuckery that is happening on the board, So yeah. This is probably like all the things that I think are like annoying about Magic, and which I wish Richard Garfield back then would have designed differently. But yeah, so these were again just the things I needed to talk about, and hope to like just let me know, guys, what you think about like these different design choices. Like, do you agree with them? Are you actually defending them? Like, let me know in the comment section what you think about these different design choices. And maybe you can actually, make me think differently or change my mind and make me think differently about these different things and make me actually appreciate these things, right? But for now, I really don't like them. And it's, again, just sadly things that prevent me from fully appreciating Magic. But all in all, still one of the best trading card games out there, and like currently probably the greatest like virtual card game right now on the market. And so, yeah, if you haven't checked out Magic Gathering Arena, do that. I will link the link down below for those guys out there that want to try out the game, and give it a shot. So for now, peace out, and thanks for watching my video.